The final function that we have that we need to add to our inventory utility is the search inventory or inventory search, and that takes in a query string parameter. So this one will start off by following similar conventions to what we used for get inventory, where we get back a list of products. So I'm going to go ahead and copy this function body, and I'm just going to paste it into inventory search. Get rid of this throw new not implemented exception. So delete that, paste in this, and so this is pretty close to what we need. The few things that I want to do first before we jump in is right now we've got this loop exists in 3 places, and if you follow the dry methodology for writing code, you want to remove as much duplicate code as possible from your program, and that's so that you have concise, accurate locations where code is run. So what I would like to do to start off is I want to do another refactor step. So since I have this code here, and then I also have it in the get inventory located right here, because right now it's the exact same code, and then I also have a similar block of code under get inventory by ID, I want to streamline it so that this code only really happens in one spot. So ideally what I want to do is I want to create a function that represents transferring the data from the data reader into the object properties. So we'll start with the get inventory, where it returns all the records. And in here, I'm going to go ahead and do a step where I'm going to highlight this, and I'm going to right click, and I'm going to choose quick actions, and it's going to give me an option to extract a method. So this method extraction allows me to go in, and it's actually going to identify what are the common elements and what are the input parameters needed to generate a new method. Now I could do this work just as easily by hand, but I always like to see if Visual Studio is smart enough to figure it out. So by choosing extract method, it says, hey, we can take that block of code and replace it with a product new p, which is our output variable, and it says equal new method and passing in the reader, which is exactly what I would do by hand. So then here it's going to create a static method that returns a product. Right now it's just calling it new method, and then it takes in a SQL data reader, pass in that reader, and then it takes that block of code that we actually had and it moves it into a return new product and then populates the value. So I'm going to go ahead and say extract method, and then it asks me to give that method a name. So I'm going to call this build product and hit enter. So now in my code a method has been built called build product that takes in a reader and then it returns back a product. So if I scroll down past this method, you'll see here that there's a new private static that returns a product called build product, and it takes in a data reader. It returns the new product, and then this is the code that we had written previously that actually copies the values from the data reader into a new product object, and then it returns that new object. So now anytime I need to do these steps, instead of actually writing those steps out, I can simply pass that reader into build product and get back my product object. So I'm going to copy this name. Actually, before that, I'm going to do another quick adjustment. I'm going to cut this method out, and this is just a preference thing. I'm going to scroll down to the bottom past all my other publics and move it down here to my private method area, and I'll paste it in. Alright, so now I'll go ahead and copy the name, build product, and I'm going to find any place where I do a new product and then do this work with the data reader. So I'm basically going to highlight and delete, and then call build product and pass in that reader, semicolon. So this line now becomes the work for building the product object from the data reader. So this was inside of inventory search. I've already taken care of the one inside of get inventory. So then the last one is to return a single inventory object. So I'll do the same here. I'll highlight this, delete, call build product, and pass in that reader object. So now every time I'm trying to build a product object from my reader, I have this single method that does that work. And then if I end up adding new properties or making changes, all that can be done inside of this one method called build product instead of having to look for that little block of code every time. So I've now created this little kind of mini utility function that does the work of building a product from the data reader. Alright, so back to inventory search. So we're kind of working along the same lines as getting all objects, but we want to have this query or search capability to find specific objects. So to do that, we're going to have to first make changes to our SQL code itself. So right now we have a select star from products. So I'm going to change that to be select star from products. And then I'm going to add a where clause. So we'll say where. And then we have to kind of define or identify which columns within our products table do we want to search against. So if we look here, we have a name, a UPC code, a description, and a unit price. Logically, the only two things that we really would want to probably search on, or three things, would be name, UPC code, and description. So we can say here where the name is like, and then I'm going to do single quote, at symbol, single quote, plus at query, plus at plus single quote, percent single quote. And what that's going to do for us is it makes a like statement, a SQL like statement, where we say where the name is like, and then the percent signs can be looked at as if they were wildcards. So we're looking for that query value inside of a larger name. So we can do that way, and then we can say or, and then we'll move down here, we'll say UPC code, and maybe we do another like, or we can do an equals, we can say at query, or the description is like at percent at plus at query plus percent. So what this is going to do is three things. It's going to say I'm going to find any products with a name like the query value, or where that query is inside of the name field data, or where the UPC code equals whatever the query string is, or the description contains the query string value inside of it. So we're trying to find this query value inside of any products where it may match. So that'll do that search for us, and we'll get back potential results. We're using ORs in both cases because we want to get back where it's like this, or like that, or like the third. So we want to make sure that we're giving ourselves as much flexibility as possible. So that'll do the search. We need to then make sure that we pass in that query parameter. So cmd.parameters.add, and then we'll say at query, comma, query. And query as the second input parameter is that string that we defined up here previously. Now we need to do add with value. Okay. So we've got that in place. And then again, we're opening our connection. We have our reader. While the reader reads, we'll be building our products, adding them to the collection, close the reader, and then ultimately returning that collection of products that we found. So this is our search, our inventory search, and we've got that piece built, and now we're ready to start building out some Windows forms.